Trust me.
What are you doing, bud? He's 12 years old.
Come here. Well,
This is the video that has Kelowna and the rest of the country talking today and questioning police officers' involvement in wellness checks. The incident happened here at this apartment building for UBC Okanagan students. It involved Corporal Lacey Browning and a nursing student, 20-year-old Mona Wang. It resulted in Browning dragging Wang across the building's lobby in front of other students and then stepping on her head. Actions all caught on surveillance cameras. In a civil lawsuit, Wang says she was in mental distress and her boyfriend called the RCMP to check in on her. Wang claims Browning found her lying in a semi-conscious state in her bathroom, but instead of providing help, she says the officer yelled at her to get up and kicked her in the stomach when she didn't. The surveillance video shows Browning pulling Wang, who is lying on her stomach and not moving, down a carpeted hallway and later into the lobby. Wang is handcuffed and only wearing pants and a bra, as other students come and go, some stopping to stare at her lying on the ground. When Wang lifts her head slightly, Browning forces it back down to the floor with her foot. None of the claims in the lawsuit have been proven in court. However, the video comes in the wake of another disturbing arrest video for the Kelowna RCMP, where an officer punches a suspect repeatedly in the head. And it's also on the heels of other incidents involving police and wellness checks in Canada, including cases that resulted in deaths in New Brunswick and Ontario.
Really disturbing. And I think it just highlights the need for systemic changes. Obviously dealing with mental health and addiction issues is not easy, but what I saw in that video was incredibly disappointing.
Corporal Browning says Wang was combative and she only used enough force to take her into custody under the Mental Health Act.
For IDs. Two kids whizzed by on scooters in the opposite direction at the skate park in Gravenhurst, where several OPP officers have arrived on scene. Even from this far away, you can see a young boy go flying onto the ground. He and several others were practicing at the skate park, which is currently closed due to the stay-at-home order, when police showed up.
A few kids were getting the one cop mouth because he showed up in an aggravated tone. Like from the get-go, he didn't ask politely. He didn't approach any politely. He was just aggressive.
The OPP say officers stopped to speak to a group of young people, none of whom were wearing masks or social distancing. Officers attempted to interact with the youths, which led to a physical confrontation between one officer and one young person. O'Hare says the boy who was pushed was not one of the kids talking back to the officer. And even if he was, experts say that would not warrant this reaction.
You have to be able to put your training into practice in those cases, then common sense would dictate that you shouldn't be using force. You shouldn't be thinking about using force in those cases. De-escalation, communication is the best methods to bring a situation into control, especially when you're speaking with a child. I mean, that's just common sense.
When the province briefly expanded police powers to arbitrarily stop people, a number of forces refused to take part, but not the OPP. The OPP commissioner says the agency holds its members to the highest levels of accountability and has ordered an independent investigation to be done by Peel Police, while the officer involved has been reassigned to administrative duties.
In particular at this time, it's our Black African Canadian community.
A message of solidarity from Edmonton police after the killing of George Floyd.
They're hurting, and it's our job to walk shoulder to shoulder.
But just hours apart, this video went online as well. Sifa Ngeze filmed it and posted it. That's her husband being immobilized by an Edmonton police officer. She says the knee was on her husband's neck for 4 minutes. That type of restraint just shouldn't happen, says this former police chief.
You don't need to kneel on them. If they're struggling in such a way that they need to be further restrained, you can always put a knee on their shoulder blade or on the shoulder.
He says Canadian police have moved away from the technique because it's dangerous. The RCMP says it doesn't allow it. Montreal police referred us to a college training program, saying it couldn't answer the question today. But in Ontario,
What are you doing? What are you doing?
This video was taken a year ago.
Off of him.
An oversight body cleared this police officer's use of force. And 3 years ago, it cited an earlier coroner's inquest recommendation to reinforce through regular and refresher training the risk of death associated with the use of neck restraint techniques. In the Edmonton case, police say they only restrained Rokondo when he refused to move away from the scene. And the only officer discipline was for profanity used during the arrest. But Edmonton police say they do not train their officers to place a knee on someone's neck.
CTV's Gord Kurbis reports.
Dad. Stop! That's my neck!
Get your hand off the kid's neck. What are you doing? He's younger than me.
An altercation between a Comox Valley RCMP officer and a 14-year-old is caught on camera. It's a situation some say should never have happened.
It was brutal. It was brutal. The cop had him around the throat like this. He was tripping him. He was on top of him. He was crushing the kid's head into the ground.
Marcia Hurd is the manager at a Cumberland bar close to where the Saturday incident happened. She was drawn to the street by loud yelling, which took place after the officer tried to stop the teen for riding without a helmet, riding on the sidewalk, and refusing to give the officer his name.
What are you right now? You've assaulted a minor.
The officer is confronted by several witnesses, including a prominent Cumberland hairdresser, Jean Cameron, who tried to come to the teen's rescue.
She's an icon. She's a pillar of the community. And I'm very upset that she's being charged with obstructing police when the video clearly shows that there is no obstruction.
Tim Rooney is a friend of Cameron's, and he collected 3 cell phone videos of the incident. Those videos are now being reviewed by the RCMP. A statement by RCMP says the video does not show the officer conducting a legal stop, nor does it show the male allegedly refuse to identify himself and become verbally abusive with the officer. Surrounded by angry residents, the officer called for backup. 6 more vehicles quickly arrived. Rooney believes the officer, seen here in one of our earlier news stories, needs to be reprimanded. He believes the member owes the teen, the community, and especially Cameron an apology.
She's worried that she's going to have a criminal record. She's worried that the police are going to target her store.
The matter is expected to begin going before the courts on March 24th. Gord Kurbis, CTV News, Cumberland.